Ahead on America Tonight, politicians put party aside to call for a unified response to Hurricane Helene.
We're not talking about politics now. We have to all get together and get this solved.
The president and I have told state and local leaders we will provide whatever help they need in the days and weeks ahead.
Plus, the man accused of plotting to assassinate former President Trump pleads not guilty, and a chemical fire causes an apocalyptic scene in metro Atlanta.
They are chemicals, and how they react, you don't know. And so when this plume starts out, it could become, very, very dangerous, toxic.
What's in the air? America Tonight starts now. Tonight, much of the Southeast still digging out from the destruction left behind by Hurricane Helene. Helene, now one of the deadliest storms to hit the U.S. mainland in recorded history. I'm Maritza Giorgio in Atlanta, and this is America Tonight. Helene, now long gone, but its damage and death toll are growing as its floodwaters finally start to recede. At least 121 deaths across 6 states have been attributed to this storm, and hundreds of people are still missing in communities across the path of destruction. Search and rescue operations underway in Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, and Tennessee. Helene dumped as much as 30 inches of rain in some areas, drowning towns like Asheville, North Carolina, in muddy, debris-filled floodwaters. Meanwhile, the swath this storm cut across the Southeast expected to cost a pretty penny. Preliminary estimates from AccuWeather put the total damage and economic loss between $95 billion and $110 billion.
I'm here to tell every single survivor in these impacted areas that we will be there with you as long as it takes. For the sake of yourselves, and your families, I urge everyone returning to their communities and home to listen to the local officials and follow all safety instructions. Take this seriously. Please be safe.
Former President Trump, meanwhile, has already seen Helene's damage firsthand. He traveled to Valdosta, Georgia this afternoon, where he criticized the Biden administration's response to the storm so far.
The governor's doing a very good job. He's having a hard time getting the president on the phone. I guess they're not being responsive. The federal government is not being responsive, but they're having a very hard time getting the president on the phone. He won't get on, and of course the vice president, she's out someplace campaigning, looking for money. So they have to be focused over here.
Now, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp refuted Trump's claims that he was not able to reach President Biden by phone. Kemp says he spoke with Biden Sunday afternoon. Vice President Harris did spend some time campaigning in Las Vegas today, but returned to Washington for a FEMA briefing tonight. She says the Biden-Harris administration is focused on getting people and supplies to areas that need them most.
More than 3,300 federal personnel have been mobilized. We are deploying food, water, and generators and working to restore water and power.
Now, for residents in North Carolina, those crucial supplies are in short supply, and the situation there growing more dire by the day. National correspondent Dan Grossman is in Greenville, North Carolina, with the latest there.
Hey, good evening. As the death toll from Helene climbs to more than 100, the race for supplies among the survivors begins. We're in Greenville, South Carolina, normally about 45 minutes south of Asheville. It's taken about an hour and a half to 2 hours due to road closures because of severe flooding. You can see the residents here lining up for water, for ice, for gasoline, a lot of the supplies that are in short supply after Helene dumped more than a foot of water. In North Carolina, more than 30 people have died. Here in South Carolina, nearly 30 people have died. In Buncombe County, which is where Asheville is located, it says that they have received more than 11,000 calls for checkups, wellness checks on people, loved ones, presumably have not heard from other people as cell phone towers have been down and communication has been difficult. In neighboring Mitchell County, there has been a list of 200 names of people who have been reported missing. This death toll is expected to climb in the coming days. Closer to Asheville, search and rescue crews are using boats to go from house to house in the general area. We're still talking Tennessee, we're talking Georgia, and of course Florida, where Helene made landfall. You still have lines longer than this with people trying to stock up on supplies as they wait out the long period that officials estimate it will take to get communications and basic living supplies up and running once more. From Greenville, South Carolina, Dan Grossman, Scripps News.
All right, thanks so much, Dan. And first responders are on the ground across the Southeast tonight, working tirelessly to bring resources and relief to Helene survivors. The American Red Cross is among them, of course, and the organization's national spokesperson is with us now to talk through their response efforts. Evan Peterson, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Help me understand first, we got such a clear picture today about the devastation and loss of life and the needs for many people. Why was there such a delay? Why did we get such a clear picture this many days after it hit?
I just want to say that our hearts go out to the people who've been impacted by this. We know millions of people are suffering and dealing with this right now. And this delay you're talking about in terms of getting an understanding of what is facing these communities, it's because of the severity in the damage, in the devastation. For some people, this storm, all it was for them was a puddle of water on their front porch. And if you are one of those people, count yourself very lucky and fortunate. But for so many other people, it was a damaged house or a completely destroyed neighborhood. Their lives are going to be forever changed by this. And some people we know are obviously still trying to connect with loved ones and obviously dealing with the trauma associated with that. So as debris starts getting cleared, as people start getting that all clear back from their emergency management officials that they can return home, we are going to continue learning more. So again, this is going to be a long recovery process.
Yeah, and I've been in those hurricane zones after the storm passes, and it's hard for people to understand how vast and how much damage there actually is on the ground unless you're there. And like you said, this is going to be a long process, but how much worse do you think this is going to be in the days ahead as far as what we learn?
Yeah, and I'll add to that really quickly, just that there may be some neighborhoods you look at that look completely fine if you're driving down the main street. But inside that, just, again, so much water has moved into so many of these areas that, think about it, an inch of water, that's a big problem. But when you have 6 or 7 feet of that in your basement and your first floor of your home's unlivable. So I think the path to recovery here for many people is going to be, we're not talking days and weeks, we're talking months and maybe years for some of them.
Let's talk about the unique difficulties that Helene brought. What are you seeing with this storm recovery and the needs you're seeing that stands out from other efforts?
I would say the needs and the challenges vary from location. Again, what the headaches are here in Tampa, Florida, where I am, are going to be very different than, say, Valdosta, Georgia, or Atlanta, or Tennessee, or even anywhere in the Carolinas. I mean, we're looking at Asheville right now. I think it's going to vary by geography, but we want people to know that when we saw this storm appear in your newscast on the radar, we moved hundreds of people, tens of thousands of resources from snacks and meals and cleanup kits, and even hundreds of blood products into these areas so that when the storm all clear was given, we could immediately start responding and help. We have more than 900 people responding to this disaster, and we have allocated so many more resources, and we have so many more people on standby because, again, we expect the needs to change in the coming weeks, and we want people to know that we were here before the storm. We're going to be here alongside you well after it, and we're going to get through this together.
And Evan, I want to talk to you about resources here with your organization, other organizations. How can those of us who were not affected directly by Helene, how can we help those people who desperately need it right now?
I would say the most effective way to help people in need if you are not in the impacted area is first to make a blood donation. As I mentioned, we moved hundreds of blood products down into these areas, knowing there was going to be a need for them shortly thereafter. So if you have the opportunity, go to redcross.org. It just takes an hour to jump in the chair and make a donation that can save someone's life. The other way is to make a financial donation, which you can also do on redcross.org. All of the services that we provide people are completely free of charge, and a big part of how we do that is because of the generosity from the public. So I want to say thank you. We are going to continue responding to this disaster, and we also know that hurricane season isn't prepared for what's to come next, and the public's generosity is going to help us do that.
Just unbelievable damage. Evan Peterson with the American Red Cross, thank you so much for the work you and your team are doing on the ground tonight, and we appreciate your time tonight as well.
Thank you.
And Scripps News has launched a disaster relief campaign to help the many victims of Helene. To help those impacted by the devastation from this storm, you can also scan the QR code that you see on your screen right now. It will take you to our website with information about how to donate, or you can text Helene to 50155. Every dollar donated goes directly to those impacted by Helene. The Scripps Howard Fund will match every dollar donated up to $10,000 to support relief efforts. And still ahead on America Tonight, sports fans mourn a baseball legend with a complicated legacy. Pete Rose has died at 83 years old. How his success and scandals quite literally changed the game. But first, the man accused of trying to kill Donald Trump at his Florida golf course has pleaded not guilty. We are taking you inside Ryan Wesley Ruth's court appearance. That's up next.
I didn't hear anybody knock. Shall we proceed?
My ball's the best shot in the whole world. Isn't it exciting?
They call you the rifleman. Just make it good.
Saturday night.
First you moved in, you banned cigar smoke and kitchen nudity.
Oscar Madison.
Just doing my daily yoga.
Felix Unger.
You're not exactly a guy's guy.
Why? Because I use coasters? I'm an accomplished photographer. Perfect, let's start shooting. And I can make a pair of tap shoes talk. What do you say, boys?
Together, they're the odd couple.
Here, hold that. Oscar, is that coffee? I just cleaned the rug. Better not move.
The Odd Couple, Saturday starting 7/6 Central on Laugh More.
I'm a judge. I loved being on the bench. I want viewers to see that, to know what it's like to love being in a courtroom and to love watching what happens in a courtroom.
This is a case where I think you can believe either side based on the evidence being presented.
Here at Court TV, we can show you everything. And I hope at the end of the day, they've learned a little something about what it takes to try a case and why it's so important that it's done well.
Ion is on with 3 networks to enjoy.
Yeah, it's on.
Yes, showtime.
You're gonna want to see this.
It's on. Ion, Ion Plus, and Ion Mystery.
Wow!
It's on.
I'm Maritza Giorgio, live from our studio in Missoula, Montana, and this is America Tonight.
Scripps News takes you ahead of the headlines.
We're reading between the lines there.
America Tonight on Scripps News. Find with an antenna or on your favorite streaming app.
There's gonna be trouble.
Are you silver?
Let's have it. Scared? You the law?
Oh, that's right.
I'll find you and I'll kill you.
Now all I need is a fresh horse, a saddle, and a gun.
You got us banned from being room parents? I have never been more in love with you.
Who wants to go nuts for donuts?
Show him your folding trick.
I'm not in the mood for your sheet right now.
That's gotta hurt, huh?
You keep me coming back for more.
Welcome back to America Tonight. The man accused of plotting to kill former President Donald Trump at his Florida golf course made a court appearance today, pleading not guilty to 5 counts, including attempted assassination of a presidential candidate. National political correspondent Alex Miller is live in New York with the latest. Good evening to you, Alex. What happened at today's arraignment?
Well, it was an incredibly quick arraignment at this West Palm Beach federal courthouse. We know that these arraignments typically don't take very long. This one was 5 minutes, and he was brought in a khaki jumpsuit, shackled. And when the judge asked him how he pleads, he did not answer, and his lawyers had to answer for him, saying he pleads not guilty. They asked for a jury trial, and according to the Associated Press, he waved at reporters when he came into the room. Now, there are 5 charges, but they've come at different times. So I want to talk about the 3 charges that are new tonight. So let's go through them. First, attempted assassination of a major presidential candidate. We had heard the former president complaining that this wasn't part of the charges, just took them a little bit longer. Obviously, there was search warrants and things that had to be done. This is now one of the charges: possessing a firearm in furtherance of a crime and assaulting a federal officer. Now, there are previous charges from the last couple of weeks. They are charged with a firearm possession of a convicted felon and possession of a firearm with an obliterated serial number. They had to execute search warrants where they found that he had a list of dates and times and venues that former President Trump was going to be appearing at. And prosecutors say that he went to Mar-a-Lago multiple times before ultimately lying in wait. Obviously, no shots were fired, but still concerning enough and enough evidence there that they felt that they could bring all 5 of these charges.
So, Alex, what happens next for Ruth?
Well, he is being held right now without bail, and he is going to be tried by Judge Eileen Cannon. Now, if that name sounds familiar to you, that is because it is. She is the judge that was presiding over the documents case, the one that threw it out in favor of former President Trump. It is still going through the court system, potentially going all the way to the Supreme Court after being challenged by the special counsel. But she's getting another Trump-related case. So that in itself, obviously interesting. Just the assassination attempt charge, Maritza, could carry a maximum of life in prison. So these are very important charges to be paying attention to. And prosecutors said today in court and in their filing that there is a potential for having additional charges. So it might not just be these 5. We might see more down the pike.
Okay, Alex Miller for us tonight. Thank you so much, my friend. And a developing story in just the last hour. We've learned that controversial baseball legend Pete Rose has died at the age of 83. Rose holds the MLB record for most career hits, but received a lifetime ban in 1989 after he was found to have bet on baseball games. Now, after that ban, Rose spent years in the public eye, bouncing from pro wrestling to reality TV. He later admitted he did bet on baseball in an effort to get into the Baseball Hall of Fame. But legal issues, including a prison sentence for tax evasion and an unsealed statutory rape accusation, kept Rose from being accepted by the baseball community. And a giant of the game of basketball has also died. Basketball Hall of Famer Dikembe Mutombo lost his battle with brain cancer today. Mutombo's imposing presence made him a defensive star, first for Georgetown University and then for 6 NBA teams. He was also a giant off the court, and not just for those iconic finger-wagging Geico commercials. He spent his life doing humanitarian work to help people in his native Democratic Republic of the Congo, and served as an ambassador for the NBA to his home continent of Africa. Dikembe Mutombo was 58 years old. Well, still ahead on America Tonight. Thousands forced from their homes in Georgia after a chemical fire and toxic smoke. Look at that. They erupt from an industrial plant. We'll have more, plus rebooting an old nuclear plant in Michigan, why the government is loaning out billions of dollars to restart the old reactor on Lake Michigan. That's next.
Why is America paying attention to the race?
Because what happens in this town happens to your town too.
Here on the steps of the U.S. Capitol after a historic...
The decisions made in this house are felt in the heart of yours.
Every night on The Race, we take you to the people, the policies, and the political points of impact.
We want to add some context around it tonight.
The Race, weeknights at 6/5 Central on Scripps News. Watch with an antenna or on your favorite streaming app.
Saturday night.
First you moved in, you banned cigar smoke and kitchen nudity.
Oscar Madison.
Just doing my daily yoga.
Felix Unger.
You're not exactly a guy's guy.
Why? Because I use coasters? I'm an accomplished photographer. Perfect, let's start shooting. And I can make a pair of tap shoes talk. What do you say, boys?
Together, they're the odd couple.
Here, hold that.
Toaster, is that coffee? I just cleaned the rug.
Better not move.
The Odd Couple, Saturday starting 7/6 Central on Laugh More.
His identity, a mystery.
Who is he?
His sword, lightning fast.
I challenge you!
His name,
Zorro! Zorro!
Zorro. Tuesday starting 5/4 Central on Grid Extra.
You got us banned from being room parents? I have never been more in love with you.
Who wants to go nuts for donuts?
Show him your folding trick.
I'm not in the mood for your sheet right now.
That's gotta hurt, huh?
You keep me coming back for more.
I'm a judge. I loved being on the bench. I want viewers to see that, to know what it's like to love being in a courtroom and to love watching what happens in a courtroom.
This is a case where I think you can believe either side based on the evidence being presented.
Here at Court TV, we can show you everything. And I hope at the end of the day, they've learned a little something about what it takes to try a case and why it's so important that it's done well.
What drew me to Court TV was this opportunity to combine the two things that I love. When I was in college, I studied television and radio, and then, of course, went to law school. And when I found out that Court TV was going to give me the opportunity to express myself and to share my love of the law, I was sold immediately.
The most important issue, innocence or guilt.
Started as a production assistant, then AP, and then went up the ranks, and really haven't looked back since.
I'm Marisa Giorgio, live from our studio in Missoula, Montana, and this is America Tonight.
Scripps News takes you ahead of the headlines.
We're reading between the lines there.
America Tonight on Scripps News. Find with an antenna or on your favorite streaming app.
Welcome back. Let's take a quick look, I should say, at a few stories making headlines across America tonight, starting in Georgia, where a chemical fire erupted inside an industrial plant in Rockdale County Sunday morning, spewing out toxic smoke and causing thousands of evacuations. Look at that. A thick plume full of chlorine filled the sky and was visible for miles around. Evacuation orders in Conyers, about 30 miles east of Atlanta, still in place for some 17,000 people living near the biolab plant. Another 90,000 are sheltering in place. Schools and businesses were closed today, and officials are still conducting air quality tests. Heading north to Ohio, another toxic chemical leak, this one last week from a rail tanker, is prompting a flurry of legal action. More than 200 residents in Whitewater Township near Cincinnati were forced from their homes after styrene gas leaked from the tanker. Now they are filing class action lawsuits against several companies, accusing them of negligence and trespassing. Federal regulators are investigating this incident. And just over the Ohio border in Michigan, the Energy Department has approved billions in loans to reboot an old nuclear plant on the shores of Lake Michigan. The Palisades plant in Covert Township closed in 2022. Now, Holtec International just closed a loan deal worth more than $1 billion to restart that reactor next year. National correspondent James Packard joins us live now. James, what are some of the biggest concerns about restarting an old plant like this on Lake Michigan, we should say?
Hey, Marisa. Yeah, it's incredibly close to the water, and that's one of the biggest concerns for neighbors who live there right next to this plant. And keep in mind that this is a plant that's been quiet by the time it starts again for about 3 years. So there's all kinds of safety concerns about restarting with old equipment, making sure that things that may have fallen into disrepair in the time it was quiet are back up to standard. It's been one of the concerns for the Sierra Club, which actually fought against reopening this plant, thinking that there would be too much nuclear waste that close to the water, making it impractical to run this reactor once again. Clearly, the folks who actually run this reactor, Holtec International, as well as state and federal leaders who have helped make this possible, disagree. No specifics yet on how they'll be handling all that, but there's time before this reactor actually reopens. A neighborhood group nearby had been resisting this move. I want you to hear from the spokesperson for that neighborhood group, who is now pushing for the NRC, the government agency that oversees safety of reactors, to make sure this is done right.
We're not sure that anything we say could stop
the NRC from approving Palisades, but please, 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 NRC, take the time to do it right.
Okay, now listen, this is the potential for huge energy sourcing in South and Western Michigan. I mean, you're talking about 500,000 homes and businesses that could be served by this reactor, and two major cooperatives already saying they're going to pull energy from that reactor to serve rural areas of Michigan. They are going to do that, by the way, in part with grant money that is also coming from the federal government, north of $1 billion there. This is also after the announcement Constellation made earlier this year that they intend to reopen one of the reactors at 3 Mile Island. Of course, a name that will ring a bell. They plan to do that in 2028. So we're seeing the potential, Maritza, that more of these old reactors could be coming back online to help us make up some energy deficit that we've seen as we set those really high clean energy standards for 2050.
And you mentioned, James, people and groups trying to fight this. So how long has that fight been going on? How long has this been in the works?
Yeah, I mean, there has been a fight to keep this from happening in this particular neighborhood, and there are certainly groups that resist nuclear energy in general, but the Energy Department in particular is very concerned that we don't have enough nuclear energy production in this country to meet our very ambitious clean energy goals by 2050. Jennifer Granholm, the Department of Energy Secretary, says that we need 98 new reactors in this country to actually meet our goals. That's not just stuff coming back online, Maritza, that's construction of new reactors. So a big question would be, is the federal government also going to put big money behind building new stuff?
Wow, something that we know you will be following for us. James Packard reporting for us tonight from Los Angeles. Thank you. And for the audience leaving us right now, your local programming is up next. But for those of you sticking around, we are covering a big ruling expanding abortion access in Georgia and what it could mean in this key swing state come November. Plus, we are one day out from the vice presidential debate. We preview the issues, the stakes, and whether anything will be more memorable than that fly that landed on Mike Pence's head last time around. And here's a live look right now at a nighttime shot in St. Louis from across the Mississippi, courtesy of EarthCam, of course. Beautiful evening there. The Gateway Arch always makes for an impressive view, but the river next to it, even more so. If you wanted to build an arch that stretched over the Mississippi at its widest point in Minnesota, well, that monument would have to be around 92 times bigger. We're not sure how many Danny DeVito's bigger, but we will get to the bottom of that. And we will be right back here on America Tonight. Stay with us.